Assalamu alaikum. My name is Abdulwhab. I'm a medical intern from Sultan Abdulaziz University. I'm here to talk about my experience on passing the USMLE STEP 2 CK exam. I did the exam 1 year ago and I got a score of 281, alhamdulillah. And I'm here to share my tips for people who are planning to take the exam anytime in the future. So basically before we start, what's USMLE and what are the steps? تكلمت عنها قبل في مقطع بشكل مفصل بس I will go through them يعني very fast. They're license stage exams and step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1 is basically basic science وهو pass fail exam. Step 2 is a scored exam from 1 to 300. This exam is very clinical and similar to the USMLE and the Canadian exam as well. Finally, you have step 3, which is an exam that you need to do before you finish your first year of residency in the United States. So basically, you can apply to residency without step 3, so not going to waste a lot of time discussing that. طيب, when should I take all of these exams? Let's see what US medical students do and just try to simulate them. They usually finish their second year in medical school and then take the step 1. Second year عندهم هي نهاية basic years, فبعد ما يخلصون basic years على طول ياخذون step 1. بعد سنة ثالثة عندهم which is the first year of clinical years, they take step 2. بعدين بعد سنة رابعة خلاص ما عندهم أي exams, they just start residency بعدين يسوون step 3 في أول سنة في residency. طيب, let's compare it to what we do. احنا نخلص basic years بعد سنتين أو 3 سنين, بعدين you think about doing the step 1. بس لما تذاكر لا تكتشف إن a lot of the knowledge is not being taught في الميديكال سكول, فتحاول إنك تحول النقص هذا وياخذ منك الموضوع أكثر وينتهي بك المطاف إنك تاخذ step 1 بعد أول سنة كلينيكية عندك في الجامعة. طيب, بعد ما تخلص أو step 1 you start to think about taking step 2. وهذاك الوقت غالبا بتخلص الاختبار step 2 بعد سنة خامس أو سادس قبل internship. تخلص step 2 وبعدين you take step 3 when you're a resident in the United States. This is ideally what you should do. إنك you take step 1 بعد أول سنة كلينيكية بالكلية, بعدين you take step 2 just before internship أو بعد الاسملي, يعني either way is fine. This is what is ideal, but a lot of people just don't follow that يعني order ويفكرون ياخذون الاختبار مرة later. It's fine, but this is the ideal. This is for people who just starting. يعني it's better to follow this order لأن it's going to be harder to study for the USMLE during residency أو بعدين تكون مرة مشغول. طيب, متى تقدر تقول إنك مستعد إنك تذاكر step 2؟ Once you finish clerkships أو core clerkships في medicine, surgery, pediatrics, obgyn and psychiatry, you're ready to start preparing for the step 2 CK exam. Especially إذا أنت مسوي step 1 قبل. إذا أنت مسوي step 1, please don't wait more than a year to finish your step 2. And a lot of the knowledge in the step 2 is just based off your step 1 knowledge. That's going to help you a lot and يكون مذاكرتك لستep 2 أسرع وتكون much better at answering the questions اللي فيها ties لل basic pathophysiology and so on. طيب, هذا يجيب السؤال الثاني اللي هو should I do step 1 before step 2? It's better, it's recommended, but you don't have to. If you do the Canadian, I would recommend for you to do the step 2 لأن you're going to يعني study the same materials you or the QBank بعدين خلاص تاخذ step 2. It's going to be more convenient إنك تاخذ step 2 بعدين step 1. But it's better always to take step 1 before step 2. It's going to help you a lot. طيب, you decided to take it. أنت بالوقت الصحيح الحين تسأل نفسك إيش الريسورس اللي أخذها أو إيش الريسورس اللي أحتاجها. First and foremost عندك الكيوبانك. This is the most important tool for both content learning to enhance your test-taking abilities. What do I mean by both? Content learning إنك تتعلم كل الكونسبتس. ما تحتاج إنك تقرأ من كتاب, ما تحتاج إنك تتابع مقاطع. you can learn all of the concepts that you need to know in your exam day from the QBanks only. تمام. The other point اللي هي to enhance your test taking abilities. This is very important لأن on the test day 70% of the questions ما راح تكون متأكد فيها إيش الجواب الصح. بس you just gonna have to trust your gut or trust your abilities to eliminate some of the answers and pick the most probable answer. تمام. You really wanna يعني enhance your critical thinking abilities and think really what the question is trying to tell you. If you get يعني this skill down, your job will be much easier. The more questions that you do, the better you get في الأشياء هذه, and the higher you score, and that's just science. But it's also equally important to the questions correctly. What do I mean by that? ما ينفع تسوي لي 120 سؤال باليوم. It's just not possible إنك you absorb all of these informations. فأنا I recommend always إنك you do 80 maximum per day. When you do the questions, please read all of the explanation and the educational objective. لا تسوي skip تقول عارفة ما eliminated this. No need to review. Always review the questions. It's going to help you a lot. Trust me. And so it's more than 8 to 9,000 questions. كنت دائما أقرأ explanations in one way or another. It's always helpful. في دايم أشياء تتعلمها حتى لو إنك مرة تعرف الكونسبت. تمام. My style لما أسوي الكيوبانك إني أسوي untimed, tutor and subject based. هذا مو بشرط بس إنه it's just my style. الشيء اللي أنا ارتحت معه. untimed معناته إني ما أحتاج يكون فيه هنا تايمر فوق يقول لي معك ساعة عشان تخلص 40 سؤال. أحب أخذ وقتي لما أحاول أتعلم الكونسبت. tutor معناته إني لما أضغط على answer على طول يطلع لي explanation, لأني أحب إني ما أعدي سؤال إلا وأنا متأكد إني أعرف exactly what's trying to tell me. أو finally subject based إني أسوي medicine, then surgery, then pedia, then OB/GYN and so on. أحب أسوي زي كذا لأني أحب أعرف كيف أفرق between differential diagnosis, obstructed versus incarcerated hernia and so on. This is just my style. I think it really helps to be better يعني how to differentiate and how to learn new concepts for the exam. This is just the interface, the word interface. هنا تشوف كيف راح يكون شكله. راح يكون timed يعني ما في فوق time. أول ما تختار على طول بيطلع لك explanation. راح يكون tutor نفس يعني هو السيستم تسويه. طيب in terms of QBank options قلنا إنها أهم شيء عندك الQBank. في two main options, UWorld and ABUS. UWorld is the gold standard. It's simply the best. That's all you need to know. If you're going to do one and you can do UWorld, do UWorld. بس إذا تبغى تسوي أكثر من QBank, do ABUS. It really helps. ABUS is very good. It has comparable quality to UWorld, but it tends to be a little bit too broad and tries to include more than one concept per question, which can be confusing at first when you're trying to learn the concepts. يعني أحيانا تضيع شوي. بس إنه شيء كويس إنه once you subscribe to the ABUS QBank, you get access to the library, which is very good. اللايبرري حقتهم مرة ممتازة. هي كانت المين ريسورس حقي لما أبي أراجع أي كونسبت, واستخدمتها من أول يوم ذكرت فيه لين ليلة اختبار. مرة ممتازة. فهذه ال two options. If you're going to do one, like I said, do UWorld. Final عندك clinical mastery series. هذا مو QBank, هذه self assessment. What do I mean by that? عندهم أمريكا النظام سنة ثالث يأخذون فيه الكور clerkships اللي هي IM, surgery, pediatrics, OB/GYN, family medicine, neurology, emergency and psychiatry, وما يخلصون الكليركشيب هذه والأربع أسابيع مثلا psychiatry إلا عندهم إكزام لازم يأخذونه. إذا عد الإكزام هذا يروح على ال other clerkship and so on. فهذه الإكزامز اللي عندهم في الكليركشيبس تكون made by the same company that writes the USMLE. تمام. فالquestions اللي تشوفها في الإكزامز هذه أو CMS self assessment تكون very similar to the questions that you're going to see on the MBME self assessment, which are very similar to the questions that you're going to see on the exam لأنها made by the same company. فالconcepts repeat themselves وال question styling is very similar. فأنا أحب إني أحب أنصح الناس يسوون clinical master series قبل لا يبدأ الMBME ويسوي الاختبار لأن style of questions in UWorld and AMBUS is very different from what you're going to see in the exam. It's going to be a nice bridge between doing UWorld, CMS, بعدين MBME, بعدين the exam. This way you get more familiar with the question styling and concepts, and that will likely appear on your exam day. هذه CMS forms اللي I recommend for you to do. في a lot of offline CMS forms بس هذه active or new CMS forms. عندك intermediates عندك من 5 to 8, surgery من 5 to 8 and so on. Each form is 50 questions تقريبا ياخذون منك 2 to 3 weeks. Very useful بس إنه لا تسويها إلا بوقت ما تخلص UWorld or AMBUS or UWorld and AMBUS. بتكلم بعد شوي عن الطريقة بس يعني this is يعني هذه الsteps اللي تحتاج تاخذها تمام. Extremely valuable for doing MBMEs. I think they're going to help you a lot to improve your score. طيب another resource that you might need هي libraries. Libraries هذه تستخدمها كreference. يعني when you start studying بداية يومك you should start with the QBank and you should not open the library until you face a question that you don't understand from the question explanation itself. إيش يعني بهذا؟ إنه مثلا أنا بديت اليوم عندي 20 سؤال. أول 19 سؤال كلها فهمتها من ال question explanations في الكيوبانك نفسها. وهذه الأغلب إنه غالبا ال explanation of the question is very يعني very clear وتقدر تفهم what the question is trying to tell you just from the explanation. بس أحيانا يكون فيه concepts ما أنت مرتاح معها. مثلا abortion types تمام ما أنت مرتاح مع ال explanation. You still need to review more عشان تفهم how to differentiate. But at that point you should open library just as a reference تمام. في two options في AMBUS وفي UpToDate. I used AMBUS all the way from day one لين الليلة اللي قبل اختباري. مرة useful doesn't miss تمام. مرة ممتاز. UpToDate ما استخدمته صراحة والحمد لله اني ما فتحته ابدا. سمعت كلام انه too broad وما ادري ايش. اعرف الناس يستخدمون ال USMLE بس I wouldn't recommend for you to do it for the USMLE. AMBUS is more than enough. تمام. بس في point مهمة اللي don't switch the high yield feature. في AMBUS تلقى feature فوق على اليمين هنا إنه just high yield information يطلعها لك. switch it off لأن في a lot of the information اللي هي مو considered high yield يجي عليها questions في الإكزام. just turn it off تمام. ثالث resource بتكلم عنه اللي هي الفيديوز والبودكاست. هذه زي ما قلت another resource that you should not use as a primary resource. بداية اليوم تبدأ بكيوبانك. You're faced with something that you could not understand from the question explanation or the library. You should open a video or podcast to explain to you. Mostly video تمام. The only resource for يعني يشرح بمقاطع اللي هو الامريكية I would recommend. ما استخدمته كثير بس استخدمته بالأشياء اللي مرة صعبة كانت. مثلا pre-operative cardiac clearance كنت أحاول أقرأ أو مثلا بعض الكونسبتس في الأوبيجاين كنت أحاول أقرأ فيها بس إني I couldn't يعني get my head around them. I opened the video كان by unlimited برضو بعض الكونسبتس في الأوبيجاين. it helps إن يعني it fastens the process of understanding some of the difficult concepts. It's going to be a waste of time to do it for the whole concepts in the exam. لأن it's not useful إنك تسوي كل المقاطع حقتها بعدين تسوي كيوبانك. It's going to take you more than 6 to 8 months عشان تسوي كل هذا. make sure إنك ما تسوي كل الفيديوز. Just do the videos for the concept that you really struggle with. I would read from AMBUS afterwards لأن الunlimited tend to be a bit outdated. مثلا في treatment حق الفاجينايتس، في بعض الأشياء تغيرت مع النيو guidelines، والإكزام is very يعني updated. تمام. I would recommend for you to read AMBUS afterwards. Another option في الفيديوز والبودكاست category اللي هو Divine Intervention Podcast. هذا في بودكاست it's review based podcast. عنده more than 300 episodes، تقدرون تلاقونه على Spotify actually، وعنده موقع برضو ويب سايت. هو basically البودكاست فكرة انه يسوي ريفيو للماتيريال حقت الإكزام. في أكثر من 300 episode and obviously you don't need to listen to all of these episodes. في بس just high yield ones، وراح أحطها تحت بالديسكريبشن أو أحط سلايد لها بحيث إنه بس you listen to these، وإذا عندك أي weakness أو أي شيء تحس إنك مو مرة فيه you can listen to the episodes on that topic. بس again I only did it لما يكون عندي free time، أطبخ أمشي إلى آخره. تمام. فلا تخليه البرايمري ريسورس. finally عندنا Dirty Medicine هذا قناة على اليوتيوب. I only used it for ethical concepts لأن it's kind of difficult to know what's right and what's wrong في الethics just from reading. تحتاج شخص يقول لك لا تسوي هذا سوي هذا، فكان helpful الأشياء هذه اللي لا تسوي هذا سوي هذا. كنت just I followed him. الحمد لله يعني I did well في الethics. it's helpful بس سويت للethics only. finally في الريسورسز عندنا السيلف اسسمنت. هذه سيلف اسسمنت تسويها بعد ما تسوي اليو وورد والسي ام اس فورمز. تسوي سيلف اسسمنت to see where you stand and also to prepare for the exam day، لأن راح يكون exam day عندك timed، راح يكون عندك breaks، ف you try to simulate the exam. تمام. one important thing about the self assessment إن ما في أي واحد self assessment راح يعلمك اللي هو السكور حقك. basically you should look into all of your self assessment وتحاول يعني تستنتج ايش ال most probable range that you fall يعني within. لأنه ما في one self assessment اللي بيعلمك وش بتجيب في الاختبار. تمام. في a lot of self assessments بس the most important ones are listed here. في أهم self assessments اللي تحتاج تسويها as a must اللي هي ال MBME self assessment. زي ما قلت ال MBME self assessment هي من نفس الشركة اللي تكتب لك الإكزام. you want to be smart, you want to review these self assessment very well لأن ال concept وال question style is very similar. ففي عندك 6 MBME based self assessment، عندك 1 free 120 which are free 120 questions made by the MBME. في أكثر من form بس use the new one، وعندك form 1 to 14 من ال MBME. هذه 5 forms، فإن total عندك 6 forms by the MBMEs. You really need to revise these forms very well لأن زي ما قلت ال concepts style كله similar to what you're going to see on the exam day. revising them would really boost your score and enhance your exam performance. Other options عندك ال UWorld self-assessment which are basically made by UWorld. They're good بس إن like I said لما تحاول تركز على شيء أكثر من the other ما عندك وقت do the MBMEs. وفاينل عندك ال AMBUS self-assessment. It's just one form. The yearly release it around May ولازم تسجل قبله بشهر أو شهرين. do it, it's not going to harm you, it's free. الباقي كلبوها paid basically إلا هذا. it's free, it's not going to harm you and it's really good يعني صراحة كان fairly predictive. one thing about self-assessment شوف الناس يسوونه دايم إنه يسوي self-assessment قبل لا يبدأ وبعد ما يخلص يورد. It's not going to help you in any way. It's not going to change your management. So why would you do it? Just do the question bank بعدين شوف الأسسمنت حقك. I think it's just going to be a waste of time. راح يكون عليك stress كثير وبالأخير it's just going to boost your confidence in oh I learned this. So it's not going to really make a difference في طريقة المذاكرة حقتك وإيش تذاكر. طيب تكلمت عن كل شيء تحتاجه على الاختبار. في general principles that you need to follow when you're يعني studying for the exam. أول شيء your Q bank is your primary resource. Like I said, تصحى الصباح تسوي Q bank، ما تسوي فيديوز، ما تقرأ library، you do Q bank. The flow of your Q bank should not be interrupted at all costs. Every day you should do at least 40 and top or maximum 80 questions. لازم تقرأ كل ال explanations, and like I said, libraries, the videos, the podcasts are only for revision, learning new content that you're not familiar with. Should not compromise your Q bank flow. Generally, I would expect the ratio to be 75 to 25 for active to passive learning techniques. You should start with the most challenging topics or concepts. أحس إن الشيء هذا يساعد إنه to give you a good start لما تحاول تذاكر الاختبار. مثلا أنا بديت بالأوبيغايني ف I think it helps when you start with the most challenging subject. Continuously review the concepts through repeat exposure on Q bank. Like I said, تعرف التروما guidelines، تعرف التروما management. Okay, بس you have to always read all of the explanations. لازم تلقى شيء تتعلمه من كل explanation. Otherwise you're missing on something. Assess your improvement, address your weaknesses accordingly. This is really key if you're planning to achieve high scores. راح أتكلم بعد شوي عن طريقة كيف to assess your weaknesses and assess your improvement. Make realistic, achievable goals within the time frame amount of dedication that you're willing to make. يعني you're willing to make. It's not realistic إنك تقول لي بذاكر شهر ونص أو شهرين وأبغى أجيب فوق 270. It's just not going to happen unless you're يعني super smart. It's not going to happen. really يعني think about these two variables، الوقت اللي عندك والamount of dedication. قد ما تعطي قد ما يعني تلاقي في الأخير بحول الله. Try to improve your test taking abilities. Like I said, they're very important. They're going to play a huge role في السكور حقك اللي بتجيبه بالأخير. هذا التايم لاين اللي you're going to follow تكلمت عنه بشكل بسيط. 2-3 شهور Q bank, your AMBUS. At يعني the side you're going to do AMBUS library, review materials, تسوي online method, divine intervention and so on. هذه أشياء راح تكون just at the side. بعدين بعد ما تخلص AMBUS ويورد لازم تسوي CMS اللي هي بتكون البريدج حقك ما بين الكيو بانك والMBMEs. راح ياخذ منك 2 to 3 weeks. While you're doing the CMS, do the word or cube AMBUS mistakes, and this is how you're going to improve your weaknesses. الميستيكس اللي عندك معناته عندك weakness، أو إنك ما كنت مركز بالسؤال، بس إنك لازم تسوي الميستيكس كلها. تمام؟ فلما تسوي CMS بالصباح بالمساء تسوي الميستيكس حقتك والweaknesses. this is how to improve your weaknesses and become better. Finally بعد ما تخلص CMS تسوي 2 to 4 weeks of MBME self-assessment and other self-assessment. like I said before, you're going to review the weaknesses again من CMS وال U-word mistakes. شوف هنا بدينا weaknesses وهنا بدينا weaknesses برضو. It's very important to review weaknesses وال mistakes. Review high yield AMBUS articles هذه بتكلم عنها بعد شوي. They're going to boost your scores a lot. This is how to address your weakness, and this is how you should structure your timeline. Last weeks before your exam, there are a couple of things that you can do to improve your score. First, review your CMS and BME mistakes. It's going to help you a lot because, like I said, CMS and MBME questions are written by the same people who are writing your exam. So by reviewing these mistakes, you're basically setting yourself up to answer these concepts correctly on the exam day. Second, read the following articles from AMBUS for ethics, public health and biostatistics. I will list them below. بس قبل الاختبار بأسبوع فتحت هذه الارتكلز، تقريبا هي 10 أو 6 ناسي. الارتكلز هذه ساعدت مرة كثير. I at least got 5 to 10 points on the exam day just by reviewing these articles. Also في AMBUS في 200 plus questions for ethics, public health and biostatistics. Do them if you can because they can improve your approach to these questions, which can get tricky on the exam day. Also, the amount of these questions is very huge. They constitute 15% or 20% of your exam. So it's good use of your time. It's not a waste of your time, trust me. Review the high-yield tables, flowcharts, and focus on your weaknesses. Like I said, I'm just repeating myself. Try to develop systematic test-taking strategy. What do I mean by that? When you're in your last month, you're doing self-assessment, try to always be consistent when solving your self-assessments. For example, finish your block with 5 minutes to spare. It's not always easy, but you can do things to improve your base, and you can become much better at solving questions in a given amount of time. Also flag less than 15 questions per block, because the plan of the flagged question is to review them. If you have more than 15 questions, you're just not going to have the time to review them. So only flag the questions that you're really not sure about. Also, only choose the answers that you know. Don't pick weird answers. Also, leave the article-based questions for later. في الإكزام day راح يجيبوا لك abstract ويسألونك عن أسئلة related, research related. Leave them for later. راح تفهم إيش الأسئلة هذه. بس basically you can see them in AMBUS and UWorld questions. المغزى من الكلام هذا إنه on your exam day leave the article based questions for later. لا تحلهم بعد ما تخلص كل بلوك look at them لأنه مرة طويلة تاخذ وقت. Finally read the questions in a systematic manner. إيش يعني بهذا؟ إنه في ناس يحبون يقرون الأجوبة أول بعدين يقرأ السؤال. في ناس يحب يقرأ آخر كلمة بعدين يقرأ الأجوبة بعدين يرجع يقرأ السؤال. في ناس يحب يقرأ من فوق اللي انت تحت بعدين يقرأ الأجوبة ويختار. This is my style آخر واحدة بس it doesn't make a difference at all. Just pick a way and stick to it. لا تجرب شيء جديد في الاختبار. Also في آخر أسبوع أو آخر يوم قبل اختبارك listen to heart murmurs. You're going to have 2 to 3 questions on heart murmurs. So it's very helpful إنك you become very familiar with it and just solve the question very quickly. You can buy a lot of time just by listening to the murmur and picking the answer. You can buy a lot of time, which can be helpful. Additional notes: you note that AMBUS and UWorld questions are not very similar to the MBME or CMAS, and you should focus on the MBME questions because they're very similar on what you're going to see on your exam day. So approach your exam as if you're approaching an MBME exam. Open AMBUS library to search for the topics that you get wrong on the CMS/MBME. لأن explanations اللي موجودة في الأسئلة هذه is very poor. You wanna open AMBUS library to search for these concepts, just to get comfortable with these concepts that you get wrong on these Q banks. Consistency is really key if you want to perform really well. That's it. Self-explanatory. طيب في الأخير my experience. I finished step 1 after my 4th year in medical school in July 2022. بعدين أخذت بريك 3 شهور تقريبا. بعدين I restarted in October. بديت بأمبوس. Very slowly I did the Q bank. كنت أقرأ اللايبراري a lot لأن a lot of the concepts were very new to me. بعدين خلصت أمبوس في جانوري وبديت في UWorld. ولما كنت أسوي UWorld I did my mistakes from AMBUS. But this is how to improve your weaknesses. ودايم كنت فاتح notebook في UWorld to write the things that I'm not comfortable with. Tables, flowcharts and education objectives اللي موجودة في explanations حقت UWorld. بعدين خلصت UWorld. سويت CMS forms in May. بديتها خذت مني 3 أسابيع تقريبا. ووقت ما أنا أسوي CMS كنت أسوي UWorld mistakes and flash cards. كنت أسوي flash cards على mistakes حقتي. they're the same thing. And finally, after I did the CMS form, I started the MBMEs and other self-assessment while doing the CMS forms and other things. But always try to improve your weaknesses. This is really key. But then during the last month I did one self-assessment every 3 days وكنت دائما أراجع المستيكس حقتي. Like I said, I listened to high yield divine intervention podcasts episodes. I read my word notebook and revised my mistakes again and again. My self-assessment were between 260 and 277, so ما في ولا واحدة من self-assessment جابت سكور حقي. فهذه just to inform you not to stress about scores اللي تجيبها في self-assessment. I always try to simulate the exam لما كنت أسوي self-assessment. أخذ timed blocks and breaks يكون يعني مكان هادي وإلى آخره. آخر أسبوع I read the high yield AMBUS articles اللي كانت عنها قبل شوي. I will list them just in a minute. وسويت برضو ال questions حقت AMBUS حقت ethics and so on. They really help. ليلة اختبار كنت أسمع الكاردياك ميرمرز ما قدرت أنام للساعة 3 الليل. مو بإني أذاكر بس إن I just couldn't and I still did fine. فهذه رسالة للناس اللي يعانون من insomnia زي. والإكزام itself on the test day felt fair. كان مرة يعني كان كويس مقارنة بستيب 1 which was a horrible experience. هذا كان مرة relaxed و I was able to breathe يعني through the exam unlike step 1. These are the recommended AMBUS articles to read just before your exam last week, and these are the contacts for me if you want to ask me any question about the exam or anything at all. Please feel free to approach me. Thank you everyone, and bye.